thinks so damn funny. Oh, good evening and welcome to Having a Drink with Mink. I'm your host, Jason Mink, and I was just hanging out with some friends. You know, getting into the spirit of the thing. After all, it is Friday the 13th. And Friday the 13th is, of course, the spookiest day in October. Well, other than that one at the end of the month. What is it? No, right. National Baloney Day. Ooh. Okay, well, let's get right to it. I'll put you down there because I'm not a very good puppeteer. And I hope you have a nice beverage. I know that I do. Let's hop right in. Like I said, it is Friday the 13th, and what better way to commemorate Friday the 13th than by talking about Freddy Krueger? Yeah, that seems appropriate, right? Okay, now we showed you this guy in the past. This is the Max FX Freddy Krueger, and he came to us from Matchbox back in the day, and this was kind of a notorious action figure in its time, and sort of hard to get. It's actually become a little bit easier to get because, you know, the controversy has died down. I remember at the time, Nightmare on Elm Street was quite the thing. It was an R-rated movie, and I was 14. I'm pretty sure it was 1984 when that film came out. And my buddies and I, well, it wasn't our first choice, believe it or not. We had intended on going and seeing Silent Night, Deadly Night, which was way more controversial. As we were obviously laughably underage, they wouldn't let us in. So instead, we walked up the road to the South Hills, which was playing Nightmare on Elm Street, and we managed to get into that one. I'm actually pretty happy with that twist and circumstance, as Wes Craven's classic has stood the test of time, while Silent Night, Deadly Night feels very much like the exploitation feature that it was always intended to be. Oddly enough, both Freddy and Evil Santa Billy now have their own action figures, so you're free to make your own choice. So if you want a Santa Claus with a hatchet, it's out there for you. But this is a figure that came to us from Mego a few years back. This is a Nightmare on Elm Street Freddy Krueger. Now, why do I need two, you might be asking? Well, you know, Max FX only produced the one figure, so I can't really have a shelf full of these guys, whereas, well, I already have a whole bunch of monsters, so I figure, you know, Freddy should join the crew, and why not? The price was right, and it's the opportunity to share him here with you. We can compare him to the Max FX figure right off the bat before I tear him off the card, ruin it. Let's look at it. It has the typical Freddy Krueger glove there. You know, might have been nice to have an image of Freddy himself, but that is rather iconic. Nightmare on Elm Street, the logo is rather small up there with then sort of like a clip art, almost looking sign. So not the most thrilling package, but ultimately it's what's inside that counts. Isn't that right, folks? On the back there is the picture that should have been on the front, perhaps. Robert Englund, and then Marty Abrams down there, who is a creepier smile, I ask you. Oh, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, Robert. So we get this guy open very easily, just by ripping the top of the blister. And we don't have to mangle it completely if we choose not to. We can kind of only semi-mangle it. And right off the bat, you can see the iconic Freddy Krueger hat. Oh, yeah. Looking pretty good. And then there's the man himself. And right out of the box, you can tell his glove is a little bit malformed. Yes, it is. Now, most Freddy Krueger toys have that problem. It's hard to get all the blades going in the right direction. And actually, the Mego doing a little bit better than the Max FX figure in that category. As far as likenesses go, this one is quite impressive. Sculptor Andy Kovalt manages to get a surprising amount of detail into the head. It's not quite a NECA figure, but it's nowhere near as cartoony as it could have been. This detail extends to the figure's exposed hand, with its charred and blistered flesh. The paint is solid, with a slightly muted quality to tone down the gorier elements. It works in tandem with the sculpt to provide a consistent and uniform feel. And speaking of uniforms, Mego figures lend themselves to regular everyday characters, as getting the proportions to a superhero costume right can be difficult as far as matching what you might see in a comic or movie. As Freddy here has always been a bit saggy and baggy, it works well. The outfit is nicely tailored. The color's a good match for a cinematic counterpart. The pants could have been a little shabbier, but hey, always put your best foot forward, I guess. The only real downside here is quality control, as the left wrist snapped right out of the box. I reckon by now I should have known better than to force it, but hey, I expect a little action in my action figures. And for those of you hoping to see it, here's the Max FX head on the Mego body. You weirdos. How about some group art, huh? Old guys who like old comics? Well, you can bet that a number of them are super talented artists, and I put the word out. I said, hey, will you share your spooky and Halloween-themed art? And boy, did they come through. OG Mark Engblom delivers this legendary mashup between two cartoon titans with some eye-popping composition and colors. And yes, it would look killer on the side of your van. Indie filmmaker Ron Chibubu offers us this moody autumnal sketch, a snapshot into his own woodsy aesthetic. Jerry Fuchsius illustrated a series of fanciful werewolf types, with this furry fellow truly bringing that characteristic lupine energy. Guy Casper said that he doesn't draw all that much, which is a shame, as this sketch of the Swamp Thing really grabs the eye and throat. Matthew Chandler provided this unsettling offering featuring a laundry hamper. Hey, it's the real-world horror that often hits closest to home. OG Supreme Colin Russell sprang this here sweet fellow on us, and how about those eyes? It's as if they glint with the light of the moon itself. Dakota Alexander does some truly remarkable comic homage-style work, but it was this cocktail lounge-era image of the Gill Man and his pal that really hooked me. Swanktastic. Laird Ogden offered this brilliant, mad-style satire of classic Hollywood monsters in high school yearbook style. It's spot on in presentation and tone. Proof humor magazines still have a lot of potential reach. John Bishop sets atomic batteries to power and turbines to speed. Let's just hope that the Gillman doesn't ruin the Batmobile's upholstery. Ryan Pruitt posted this kaiju-looking fella, and I was really blown away by the detail. That's some solid line work. I just hope he doesn't stomp my city. Eric Muller makes the ink and paper sing in this rendition of Spidey's most diabolical foe, the Hobgoblin. Old Webhead had better watch out. Longtime friend of the channel, Warren Muzak, summoned this spectral presence for our little show, the sort of feisty fiend that wouldn't be out of place in an EC comic. We wrap with this powerful image from Joe Rollman, which does away with more standard macabre trappings to deliver something primal and immediate. Exceptional work. Thanks to everyone who provided art for this episode. I was blown away by the quality and variety of your offerings, and hope to feature more soon. So let's jump right in. As you can see, we got all manner of stuff in the box to answer that eternal question. Got any creepy? Yeah, we do, in fact. Issue number 4. And that's a really nice early issue. A Frank Frazetta painted cover with stories by Joe Orlando, Reed Crandall, Al McWilliams, and Angelo Torres. A remarkable lineup in any era, and that was just that month. Chock full of wild and inventive stories propelled by some of the best artwork of the era. There's surprises galore, just waiting to spring from every musty page. These early issues are rightly considered classics of the genre and have been enjoying rather successful reprints of late. My question is, do the reprints have the ads? Because for me, they're an essential part of the Warren experience. The enigmatically named Captain Company seem poised to make any monster kid's dreams, well, nightmares, come true. You know, if you had the money to splash for a realistic human skull or working guillotine model. Now, I didn't own one, but I knew a kid that did, and it's just the sort of thing that's missing from the world today. Sitting around, cutting and gluing, painting those tiny plastic pieces invoked a calm, almost meditative state. And then the guy's head came flying off. The only one producing horrific content for the newsstands. Skywald brought us Nightmare comics. It's the ultimate in spine-tingling terror, and I knew the moment I saw this cover, well, I had to have a copy for myself. That's just so dang freaky, isn't it? Something about it, just... He's feeling it. I'm feeling it. We're all feeling it over here. This is a wonderful anthology book with a lot of great stories in here. Many of them written by Al Hewitson, but illustrated by a number of artists. This is Hey Creep, Play the Macabre Waltz. And this is kind of a riff on the music of Eric Zahn, that H.P. Lovecraft classic. Only it has a ironic 1970s twist. Yes, it does. And then we have Rot, Robin Rot. Some hippies getting into trouble out in the woods there, as they will. And then the reason I bought the book, it's The Tunnels of Horror. It's all about a nightmare creature sealed beneath the tunnels of New York City. And you thought the chuds were bad. This equine-headed monstrosity gets my vote for wickedest beastie, in large part due to its human-like eyes. An effective and unsettling choice. And now here's a volume that I picked up a few months back and I've just been waiting to show you. From PS Books. This is the Collected Works, Adventures into the Unknown. And this has issues number 21 through 25. And these are some dynamite pre-code horror stories. As far as the reproduction goes, they're all right. Pretty sure that they're just straight scans of the comics themselves, probably cleaned up after the fact with a little bit of Photoshop type magic. And I could say that because I have a copy of this. And this is Adventures into the Unknown, number 23. And when I flip this open to one of my personal favorite stories in the book, this is The Ghostly Host. You get a sense of what that looked like back then. Sure, it's faded a little bit. Pages have yellowed over time, but nonetheless, it's pretty sharp, very colorful. The reproduction in this book feels like the saturation has been boosted. The detail isn't quite as sharp. That's not to say that it's not an awesome way to experience those stories. And, well, if you can find it used like I did, I would highly recommend it. Now, here's some more pre-code horror in the form of The Black Cat. Then it looks like Donald Sutherland is making a break for it. Go, man, go. On the inside, we're sheeted to Jack of Horror, a truly unsettling tale featuring some rather familiar characters. Things warm up pretty quickly, so if you can't take the heat, you may want to give this one a miss. What's that? This guy, I'll tell you what. All right, so one of my all-time favorite covers of the pre-code horror era would have to be journey into unknown worlds. I figured I'd take that journey when I saw this particular image because it's just so visceral. I mean, this guy looks mighty hungry. Next up, swamp monsters. Right? I mean, they're everywhere. You got the bog beast, you got the heap, you got the swamp thing, you got the man thing. And if you go far enough into Phantom Stranger territory, you'll even encounter the specter of the stalking swamp. And he is a nasty little booger. Turns out he's not quite the occult menace that you might think he is, but in fact, in a Twilight Zone-esque turn of events, he's revealed to be an alien being. Oh, sorry. Spoiler alert. And then we're going to move over to the Marvel side of things, and Supernatural Thrillers features The Living Mummy, and this is the Pyramid of Doom. This was the most serious of the company's classic monster books, delivering a gritty and pulp-like adventure in the Shadowlands of the Marvel Universe. Granted, it's a little tough to understand if you didn't read from the beginning, but the immersive text and the power-packed Val Mayerick artwork makes it a joy to look at the very least. Next up, do you dare enter the Tomb of Darkness? It was a formula that should have worked. Silver Age Marvel bullpenners crafting new tales of horror at the dawn of the 1970s. Sadly, after a few years of mediocre sales, these books became the domain of reprints. If you were lucky, they featured a story like this, with art from Big John Buscema. Following on, and it's the Tomb of Dracula. This is a nice early issue, number 2. Who stole my coffin? Well, he doesn't look happy about that. Some epic John Severin artwork, and I really like this era of the book. Before it had the established characters and continuity, Dracula was just running around in modern times doing his thing, and what's really interesting is how he's represented, and the coloration, they make him blue. And not just, in a couple panels, like every panel. I see why they eventually decided to do away with that, but, that's what makes these early issues interesting, and I hope they stuck with that in the reprints, because, that's part of what made these early books cool. Speaking of early books, how about Uncanny Tales? And it's Zombie at Large. This Carl Burgos and Saul Brodsky cover has a dark and aggressive energy in keeping with the haunting subject matter. Jolton Joe Sinnott provides the interiors, handling the grisly content with wry humor and solid line work. You just know it's an atlas. Following on, and it's Web of Evil. Oh yeah, you're going to want to call the Orchid Man when you have one of those. It's the orgy of death. Not quite as bad as the Key Party of Despair, but it's up there. Inside, prepare to be claimed by the mission of lost souls. Scoff all you like. It's nice to be wanted. And wrapping things up, it's weird, it's eerie, it's startling. The titles of all those other comics that maybe you buy. Well, Web of Mystery isn't ashamed to put them right at the top of their comic. This is November of 1954, and we're poised on the edge of the Comics Code. It's about to wipe out all this wonderful zombie goodness. But fortunately, we managed to rescue this copy from the bonfire. Yes, we did. Look upon it now and admire its audacity, its willingness to break rules and defy conventions in a bid to entertain its paying audience. It's a far cry from what entertainment is today, bland and predictable pablum shat onto a conveyor belt of mediocrity to be mindlessly consumed in a shallow bid to endorse the current status quo. At least, that's what I think. And so there you have it. Thank you for joining us on this very special episode of Having a Drink with Mink. I am, of course, your host, Jason Mink, joined by the ghost of all the comic books that I didn't buy this year. Hey, whoa, come on, buddy, back off. Don't have room for everything, you know what I'm saying? All right, so I'm thinking he'll be joining us for our next extra spooky episode next Friday. So until then, cheers.